do it live.
Okay.
Well,
No.
we'll do it live. F it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
What is up, everybody? Bobby here, the Nintendo Guru, joined by the pride of Long Island. I can't believe I just said that. That's surreal for me. Colin Moriarty, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. And by the way, thank you for your patience on my scheduling snafu. You allowed me to reschedule this. I was supposed to do this yesterday. It's totally my fault. So I appreciate your patience on that front.
It's more than okay. You don't have to worry about that. Like, I was just shocked that I was able to get you to do this. And it was, to me, I think it was a fluke, just because I think I hit you at the right time. You just happened to be on Twitter to see it. And so it kind of went into some stuff. I would be remiss as a Nintendo fan, and I know there's a lot of Nintendo fans out there, if I did not start this with, Colin, why do you hate Nintendo?
I don't hate Nintendo. I think Nintendo, I mean, it depends on the era of Nintendo that you're talking about, right? I grew up a Nintendo fan. Yeah. And would consider myself the hardest of the hardcore of Nintendo fan from the mid-'80s era all the way through GameCube. Yeah. So, and people that know me from way back in the day know that I was a massive Nintendo fanboy. Even when I started at IGN, I was buying a lot of my third-party games on Wii and stuff like that. But eventually you kind of just give up the ghost and realize that they were kind of failing to please me as a gamer. So it's not so much hatred as it was disappointment. But I'm kind of back a little bit with the Switch and whatnot. But I think I just, you know, no offense to Nintendo fans, but I don't think that they like, you know, realistic talk about Nintendo sometimes. So when it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's bad. And
so, it was bad for a little while. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
the Wii U was not, you know, I felt like it had some good games, very few and far between, but at the same time, I felt like, you know, the knocks it was getting were fair, you know what I mean? With the Switch, I'm very happy, you know what I mean? But like that, I said that facetiously at the start of the show, because a lot of people were tweeting me like, Colin doesn't like Nintendo. Why would you have him on your show? Like, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, anybody that's followed you, like you said, knows that you grew up playing, you know, Nintendo, SNES, all that stuff, you know, with your older brother, and then like you fell out of love, you know, and it's, I get it, I understand it completely, you know, what happened. So I was just like, my thing was, knowing that you were a former Nintendo fan, that's why I wanted to bring you on to kind of talk about the old days and see where you are now and all that stuff. But I wanted to show you something, because I think you would respect this. You would like this. Today I just went to the retro video game store, and I picked up two things today that are kind of cool. I picked up Japanese Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI, which, you know, 3 and 2 in the United States.
Yes.
And how, at that point, because you were playing those games pretty predominantly, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself, I'm 33. Mm-hmm. So my brother's almost 12 years older than me. So I was kind of exposed to games that I shouldn't have really been able to understand or play, and probably didn't even understand very well when I was much younger than I think the normal person would be. So I was like 7 when Final Fantasy 2 came to Super Nintendo. Yes. And I have very fond memories of that game, because my brother used to knock, like, we'd all go to bed, and then my brother would come knock on my bedroom door and like sneak me out of the room and bring me into his room so we could play together at night. Yeah. So I mean, that's a really golden era of gaming to me, and a really special time in gaming, not only with role-playing games, but just with gaming generally. But that's the thing I was trying to say, and I've said many times in the past, is that people look at me as a Nintendo hater generally, whether first party or third party, whatever console we're talking about. But I'd honestly got to put my NES and SNES knowledge in particular up against anyone's. And my favorite console of all time is the NES. So so it's like I don't love the same woman now that I loved when I was 16. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes your tastes change, situations change. And I think PlayStation just does it much better these days still, even with Switch versus PS4. But I'm not trying to take anything away from Nintendo. Without Nintendo, we wouldn't be here right now. I would have never gotten a job at IGN, and I wouldn't enjoy video games. So I owe everything to Nintendo.
And I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I feel like right now, Switch just has so much momentum and so much fire behind it. Like, it's almost like, it's weird. With the Wii U, it was like Nintendo could do nothing right. And it feels like right now they can do nothing wrong. Like, they, even when they botch things up, I like to use this as an example. Like, a few months ago, the voice chat, Hori released an image of the dongle and everything that they were going to use for voice chat. Horrible setup. It was the most hideous looking thing in the world. And everybody was like jumping off the top of roofs, like flipping out about it. And then like midway through the day, Nintendo comes out and goes like, oh, our online for the year is going to be $20 a year. And it was like everybody just diverted off of their hatred earlier to like, oh, we love them. You know, it's like, it's crazy that like they can pivot so quickly and just fix things at the drop of a hat. And I don't understand what's going on with everything that they're doing. With the Switch, because I know early on you were on board at first, and then I think when they announced the amount of games, you kind of faded a little bit. Where do you stand now?
Well, I bought my Switch. I got it the day it came out with Zelda. Mm-hmm. This was like, I think, a week or maybe a little more before my life started to unravel a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I played Zelda a little bit. I had the Switch, and then I just had no time to play it. So my good friend Eric Castro, who's not in the industry as a bartender, wanted to borrow it, so I just lent it to him for 6 months. And I just recently got it back, and I started playing Mario, and I think it's great. I think it's a really, really great game, and I'm really impressed with the hardware. I think that when you see, next gen games are in development, I can tell you that, when you finally, I know that for a fact. So when you finally start seeing the new consoles and the new games, I think Switch is going to look very antiquated. Yes. But for right now, I think the console and the output looks really good. The games are pretty. The games are fun. Nintendo has, like you said, Nintendo can turn it on and off, right? And Nintendo has what others don't and will never have, which is the ability to capture your imagination in very specific ways. Yes. And you can't turn off the nostalgia switch we all have in us. And that's our tether to this brand. So when I started playing Mario, I think it's really funny that it has like a 98 on Metacritic. I think that's absurd, but it's a really, really great game, and it scratches that particular itch for me. But what I really love about it is the way I think it's a little big, but I like the way it feels. Mm-hmm. There's something really quite different about it compared to Wii U. The Wii U felt very Fisher-Price, very budget. The Switch feels solid. It feels well built. Just there's something very pleasurable about taking the controller, the whatever, I don't know, what are they called? The Joy-Cons off the thing and then putting it back on, putting it in the controller. Everything just seems to work. It's like they really did learn a great deal. So I like the hardware quite a bit, and it's completely relegated Vita to the closet for me. Because I'll probably play the Vita again, I'm sure, but it really does make the Vita look very subpar. So I'll give it to them.
And I gotta say, that's crazy to hear you say that, because anybody that knows you knows it. Like, you're a huge Vita supporter. Like, that was your thing back when when you were doing Kind of Funny and all that stuff. Like, even beyond, like, you and Greg like beat that drum so hardcore for the Vita, and to hear you say that is kind of like, damn, that's powerful to hear that coming from you.
Well, it is what it is, right? I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. I have a million other things to do. So it's like, if I can't relegate the Switch to some to some tertiary place in my life when there's really no space for anything else except for maybe PS4 and something else. So that's something else right now is Switch, and I'm totally happy about that. I want Nintendo to succeed. I think Nintendo succeeding is good for you and I as gamers, and good for the industry. Yeah,
absolutely. And the one thing I love about Nintendo is, I know in the past you've been very judgmental when it comes to Bethesda, when they do their open games and like the glitchiness of them and all that stuff. I find that amazing that Nintendo comes out the gates and brings Zelda, which in theory is their first true open world game, and there's no glitches to it. And it's like, to think that that's what they did, they just walked out the doors and were like, here it is. And it to me, it's like, that's the way games are supposed to be done. Like, put them out and have them complete and finished, and not all this garbage of like, we need this gigantic day one patch, or we got to wait 3 weeks for a patch to come through. Like, they really knocked it out the park, I felt, with Zelda in those terms. And as well, it feels like they learned from the Wii U. Like, this cycle they're doing where every month they have a major game hitting is huge. Like, it feels like overwhelming at this point, like that there's so many games. Where are you in terms of like, because you said a minute ago that like you were amazed that it's standing at a 98 on Metacritic. Where would you, if you were back in your review days, whereabout would you land it at?
Maybe in the 8s somewhere. I mean, I think I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form better than Galaxy, and I feel like it's like Mario 3, Super Mario World, Galaxy are my 3 favorite games, and I actually really love Sunshine too. Yeah. Although that's become more of a joke recently, and I haven't also played Sunshine in like 15 years, so who the hell knows how I feel about it? It's literally actually almost probably 15 years to the month since the last time I played Sunshine, because that was like I got it like August 2002, so yeah, around there somewhere. But I feel like, I mean, I've been vocal about this, and it's just the way I feel. Nintendo games get a bump in scores. They get a bump in excitement when things are announced. There's a little bit more forgiveness shown towards Nintendo, and I understand why that is. It reminds me a little bit of like sports coverage, where like there's always a little bit of a bump towards the Cowboys or the Packers in football. Like teams speak a little more disparagingly about the Jets or the Browns or whatever the case might be. It's just a similar kind of thing. It's natural. I don't know that some people are doing it consciously. I think a lot of it is subconscious because I think inherently as gamers we want them to do well. But when I played Odyssey, I really am quite enamored with it. I think it's a great game. But I also feel like it's empty. I don't really like non-linear Mario as much as I like linear Mario. And so I feel like I don't really understand why this territory is so vast, why there seems to be a lot of empty space. But I'm also told that that space becomes less empty the further you get into the game and you go back and there's a bunch of moons to find. So I'm not disparaging it at all. It's a very finely made game. No one makes games as finely as Nintendo. And I think that's what you were pointing out with Zelda, comparing that to an open world, even like Horizon. Yeah. Fantastic game. Maybe my game of the year. But bugs in there, glitches in there, doesn't run quite well all the time. You can always count on Nintendo to do the right thing. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that that was born out of a need, a desire to do that, because they couldn't patch their games. When everyone else was patching their games on Xbox Live or PSN. I remember when Metroid Other M broke. And you had to literally send your memory card into them to fix the save. I'll never forget that as long as I live. So that puts something in you where you're like, this needs to be QA'd to the finest degree. This needs to be working to the finest degree. And you can always count on them to deliver that. And that's kind of the interesting juxtaposition with all of these Bethesda games going to Switch, sitting right next to Zelda, which obviously works finely. So it is very interesting.
I was playing Skyrim. I've never played Skyrim before. I was playing Skyrim the other day, and I was telling my wife, because she loves Fallout 4, and I was playing, and I had my bow out. I was getting ready to shoot this woman who had her bow out, and she's like moonwalking across the stage. I'm like, what the hell is going? Like, her legs aren't moving. She's just kind of going backwards, and I was like, oh, Bethesda. Like, this is 2000, like, a 10-year-old game or something like that? And it's
Skyrim is like, 2011 or 2012? Or maybe 2011. I mean, it was botched on PS3 too. People used to have to go, because PS3 only ran on 200, it had 512 megs of RAM, but half of it was always split for graphics. So it really could only run the game on 256 megs. So to fix the game before they patched it, you literally had to close doors and like make sure you weren't taking like things that the game didn't have to remember. And it was totally outrageous. And I think that people's patience with them is with their role playing games is waning, which is why I really don't think you're going to see, Elder Scrolls 6 would be next up. I don't think you're going to see a Fallout game for a very long time. That I think you're going to see a markedly different Elder Scrolls, something that looks better, something that runs better, because it reminds me of Telltale, but not as bad, where you got to fix the infrastructure before you have this great game. If you put this, if you have this beautiful jar, but you put shit into it, or if you have, you understand what I'm saying? Like the whole package needs to be kind of pristine, which again is what they've done with Zelda. I didn't play Zelda for very long before, the decay of my life earlier this year. But my vibe even from Zelda was that it got the Nintendo bump, because I had just gotten off of playing Horizon, and I'm like, Horizon's this fantastic game, but I'm actually leaving Zelda on the shelf because I'm going out east, where around where you are. To go see my family this winter, so that's going to be my winter game. It'll be the first time I've traveled without my Vita since 2011, since it came out in Japan.
I like hearing that. So that's it warms my heart, Colin. I'm happy to hear that.
Good.
This little indie game got announced last week, and I was just curious. I know a lot of people in the chat are kind of curious about it. Like, if you're onto it, if you're going to get it, if you're going to get it, I think it's called Megaman 11.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with Mega Man. You have to explain that to me. It was great news, right? Really cool. And actually very surprising that it got announced, I think.
I loved how they announced it. That trailer where they're kind of going through the history of Mega Man, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, here it is. I was excited for it. Like, personally, I was like, holy! You were the first person I thought of when I heard it. I was like, Colin's got to be, flipping out and stuff. But my question for you is, like, are you okay with the way it looks and it feels or whatever? Like, what's your thoughts on it?
It's not ideal, but 2.5D is never ideal. I mean, I felt that way with Mighty Number 9, which obviously is terrible, and I feel that way even with Bloodstained, which I've played somewhat extensively actually, and is we want that sprite based 2D look, Symphony of the Night look. But that game actually plays really well, and so you kind of ignore the 2.5D nature. My hope is that Megaman 11 is a similar situation. You would want any creates to go back and make the next game, like they did with 9 and 10. And what I was really hoping 11 would be 16-bit, so more in the 7 or X style.
Yes, yes.
But that said, like, it really, and I've said this before, I mean, you want an aesthetically pleasing game, but it's really not the most important thing. So my bigger concern about the game is actually, it seems like they're messing around a little bit with what Mega Man is, with the Robot Master powers kind of more heavily embodying, or being embodied, I suppose I should say, by Mega Man. It's affecting the way he looks. He has more control over, like, the geography as opposed to using it as an attack. So that's really interesting, but that changes fundamentally what classic Mega Man gameplay is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I speak for most Mega Man fans when I wish that they would make an 8-bit Mega Man game every year. But people have to understand that even though 9 and 10 were profitable, that finding a studio that can do quality pixel art that Mega Man requires, that's a really becoming a dying art. And it's super expensive and laborious to make games like that, and way easier to do it in 2.5D. I could literally name 3 studios in the world that would be capable of doing it, and it's Indie Creates, Yacht Club, and maybe Way Forward. And otherwise, I don't think that anyone's capable of doing that justice. And if they can't get those studios to work on those games, then they might as well do it the way they're doing it now. Yeah. So I'm way more excited. I'm more excited to see more about the game, but I'm also very excited about the X Collection. And was hoping that they would maybe announce a game that bridges the two together. But maybe we'll have to be more patient. This is much better than the 25th anniversary celebration, though, which is when they had to basically steal a fan-made game, Street Fighter Cross Mega Man, pretend that it was theirs, and like they were just totally unprepared. So this was good. This was a step in the right direction. And Capcom's doing well lately, right? Yeah, Resident Evil 7's awesome.
Yes,
they're doing a nice job. So we have to give credit where credit is due. Yeah.
My buddy here, Sean Capri, said in the chat, he said, is Colin upset that Capcom never called him to write the next Mega Man game?
Yeah, I mean, am I upset? No. I would do it, though. I really would do it. And I think that Mega Man deserves a AAA game. I think Capcom Vancouver would actually be a great studio to work on it. Something that's not like Dead Rising in terms of the volume of enemies or anything like that, but open worlds, something somewhat... not ephemeral, but kind of long-lasting, where you can really see it and do it as you want. So like a typical open world. And I really feel like Mega Man deserves one more shot in the AAA space, which is what I really thought we were going to get, and maybe we will end up getting before we put a nail into the coffin or decide that this is going to be relegated to digital platforms and be more of an A game as opposed to a AAA game, or an A series as opposed to a AAA series. But I think that they can do something really special with Mega Man. They just need to find the right person, me, to write it.
You should give that a shot, man.
Yeah.
Just write the script and send it. Let them steal it, and then then at least like, hey, I wrote that. Like it's okay.
True enough.
It does feel weird that like a lot of games from that generation kind of, and mainly Nintendo games, kind of advanced and changed with the times. Mega Man just always stayed where it was. Like, it never had that truly leap and bound. And I think maybe that's what they were attempting to do with this, like with the art style, to give it some type of polish and change as opposed to like the way they were. Like, it feels like, at least when I saw it, I was talking on one of my podcasts, I said, it feels like this is the way Mighty Number 9 looked when it first launched. Like, when they showed them first trailers of Mighty Number 9, it looked clean, it looked perfect. Then I don't know what the heck happened. Like, as time went on, it was like every trailer they showed, it just got worse and worse and worse. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, this is just... I feel so bad, because I like Inafune. I know you're a big fan of his work and all that. And
Yep.
it was just like, damn, what happened here? Now, I don't know if you played Mighty Gunvolt Burst.
I played the first Mighty Gunvolt. Is that the second one or the first?
This one, Mighty Gunvolt Burst, they actually Indie Creates made it, and they brought Beck into it. So it's kind of gives it's more of a Mega Man feel than Mighty Number 9, and it really feels like what Mighty Number 9 should have been out the gates. Like, it's all pixel art looking. Mm-hmm. It's a really good game. I think if you get a chance to pick it up, I think you would. It's on the Switch. I think you would love it, man.
Yeah, I played the first Gunvolt. I feel like I reviewed it at IGN, but I could be making that up. I liked it. From what I remember about, Indie Creates is awesome. So, like, I give them, I'm friends with a guy named Matt over there, who, I'm kind of familiar with their pipeline and, like, how they get things done, and they're really a very impressive studio. I mean, even with Bloodstained. So, and obviously they did us very proud with Mega Man 9 and 10. Yeah. So they're very similar to WayForward, where, like, anything that comes out from this very retro spirited studio is something I'm going to give a try, or kind of give some of my time to. What I remember about the original Gunvolt was that I loved, I liked it. I don't know if I loved it, but I remember it feeling like a little empty. It was very Mega Man X, but just not enough enemies. It didn't have that same spirit. I think I'm just very picky at this point about those kinds of games. That's why I think Shovel Knight is just so superior. So good. And I actually just bought the Shovel Knight art book, and I forgot that I wrote the intro to it. so that was a nice surprise. Yeah. I feel like any studio that continues to do something like this that's not very profitable, that keeps them in the A space or the indie or digital space, I give them credit, because everyone wants to strive to make more money and make bigger games, but I think that there's a space for this kind of game too. Yeah. And so I kind of, I don't know, as I get older and have less time to play, and you have to be kind of more, you have to kind of be more selective, I feel like these games are kind of slowly falling by the wayside for me, because you have to kind of pick or choose, and that's unfortunate. Yeah. But the way it is.
Someone in the chat, Bryce Doherty, said he just Googled it and you did review Gunvolt. So
thank you. So I didn't make it up.
So you didn't make it up. This one, Gunvolt Burst, it's more 8-bit Mega Man. Okay. The gun, so you can pick who you want to use. You could pick Beck and play the Beck storyline, or you could pick Gunvolt and play the Gunvolt storyline. Gunvolt plays like the Gunvolt games, and Beck plays like Beck in Mighty Number 9. But it feels a much better game. So I just want to let you know about that too as we're going forward.
Good to know.
You were high on Shovel Knight, big time. Are you excited to see them move this forward, or have you tried any of the DLC that they came out with, or you just played Shovel Knight?
No, I've tried it all. So the Plague Knight stuff I wasn't crazy about. I just feel like the game didn't control well, and I don't really know what they were thinking. Yeah. And with Spectre Knight DLC, I actually just beat it like last week. I want to get the platinum in it, and it's actually harder than Shovel Knight's platinum, which is fantastic. Yeah. But I feel like I want them to just move on to the next thing. And I'm actually seeing them next week, and because they're gonna sign. I bought a second copy of that book. I'm giving it to my nephew, because he's like 7 years old and he loves Shovel Knight, so I think that'll be cool. Nice. They sign it for him and stuff. That's awesome. But I'm really proud of the guys at Yacht Club for what they've accomplished. I remember, so I don't know if your audience knows this, but I revealed that game to the world, and they approached me with it, some like a month before they revealed it. Yeah. And we're trying to find who they should show it to, and I remember showing it to my bosses at IGN, and I think a lot of people they thought it looked pretty, it had promise, but I don't think people understood how big it was going to be, and I'm sure that the guys at Yacht Club, Sean Velasco, or those guys can dig up old emails where I'm like, this game's going to be, I was about to say the F word, this game is going to be friggin' huge. It's going to be huge. And because it's just so pretty, it's right up my alley. And right up our alley, probably. It takes, Spectre Knight in particular, the Spectre Knight DLC, there's so many throwbacks to Castlevania 3 in particular in that game, from an audio standpoint and all those kinds of things. There's pieces in the series of Zelda 2, Faxanadu. Yep. Obviously, the map is very Mario-like. Yep. So there's a lot special about what they do, and I'm getting frustrated in them just sticking around on the original Shovel Knight. And I understand that they're probably fulfilling Kickstarter goals and stuff like that, but I really need a sequel. And I know that they talked a little bit about, do we do a 16-bit sequel? Do we do a 64-bit sequel? I know that they were talking about, should we do like an N64 style game? And I'm like, no, do what you're doing. Like, once you have this, maybe it's just me.
No, I am with you.
We got 6 Mega Man games in 6 years on NES, and I know that times are different, but I would say that, and I remember making this argument when we did our 100 top NES games at IGN 10 years ago. I made the argument that we should probably spread the Mega Man games around this list because it looks a little ridiculous, but in reality, all 6 of these games are in the top 20.
Yeah.
And I take, maybe not Mega Man 1, but certainly 2 through 6.
Yeah.
So they have this really great thing in Shovel Knight, so just give us more. So I love those guys. I think that Shovel Knight's really, really brilliant. And I'm so happy for their success.
I remember your reveal, because you were talking about it on Beyond a lot at the time. And that actually, like, when you were talking, you were like, it's a lot like Mega Man. You were in love, and I was like, that's the thing. Like, I got to say this before we move on. Like, I am so glad that you're coming back to the games segment, and I hope you do more than you can, because me personally, and I know I speak for a lot of people out there, we need Colin Moriarty's voice in gaming. I don't read reviews. I go off of people who talk about it and are like-minded to what I like, and I always felt like you and I, in terms of like gaming, I felt like we had a similar background growing up, and it just, when you would put your seal of approval on a game, I would go buy that game without even thinking about it, and I knew this is a good game. It's the reason why I bought Last of Us. Like, I'm not into like those types of games, or I wasn't at the time, and like totally fell in love with Naughty Dog because of that whole way you went with that. So when Shovel Knight came out and you were like, this game is going to be phenomenal, everybody needs to get it, so on and so forth, I was like, I'm buying it. No question asking. So I would say from everybody, like, first, welcome back to games. Secondly, don't go nowhere. Like, we need you in this all. So,
thanks. Thank you. Well, I'm not going to go. I'm not going anywhere. I had a sort of revelatory moment some months ago, like when everything went down with me, and I had my falling out with the old guys, and I kind of let a situation and a scene kind of ruin games for me, and it was disappointing that I let that happen to me, but I also needed to go through those motions. And sometime in August or so, when I had time to sit and think, like I really had time to think, my 80-hour weeks turned into 60-hour weeks or whatever it was, and I was finally like, I can think about what's going on. I'm not building this thing anymore. Now it's kind of going.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love video games, and I've been playing them for 30 years, and I feel like I know a lot about them, and I have this big following in games. And I also feel like, old media is somewhat decaying. I think that there's still people that are doing good work. And I'm not saying this because I come from there, but I actually think in particular IGN is still doing some pretty good stuff. Yeah. But when I look at the likes of like Polygon and a lot of what's going on at Kotaku and all these, like, like Polygon's like a terrible website. Yeah, and like I just don't get why there aren't more voices trying to correct what old media is doing. And I think a lot of it is like they're trying to kind of protect themselves. Yeah. The old media guards, like, while on YouTube and on Twitch, people are kind of being the new tastemakers and stuff like that. And I think fit somewhere in this space in between where I come from the old media. I have a lot of respect for what it's done and what it can still do. It still has incredible resonance and power. But I take my role as tastemaker somewhat seriously, and I don't want people to play bad games on my account. So, so I don't think the output will be quite as high as it used to be because I'm a one-man army here. But at the same time, I feel like maybe my voice is needed. I don't need a million viewers or listeners to just like you, to have a voice and touch people's lives in a specific way. And so I'm glad that people are happy that I'm back. Yeah. And I'm happy to be back too. I need, I got to be honest with you, like the political and historical thing has been a lot of fun, and I'm going to continue to do it. But if I can be candid, the one thing that I didn't expect is how exhausting it is in terms of it just never stops. Everyone's just always bitching and whining about everything. And you kind of, I'm not saying fandom is any different, but because it's not in its own way, but it's not as serious. It's not as dire, Yeah. And so this is a nice break. Instead of doing 2 history videos a week, I get to do a video game video a week and kind of circulate that into my life. So I'm happy if people are happy I'm back. I know a lot of people are not happy I'm back, but who cares?
I
It's
don't care.
we have each other.
We need, so it's just not me. Bryce says here, I really enjoy Colin's viewpoint. I don't always agree with him, but it's good to get another point of view, and that's absolutely where it is. Like, I think that's where it's so like-minded right now. It's like a bunch of drones all spewing out the same stuff, and it's like your voice was the different point of view. You know what I mean? Like, you had the different side, and it was like, that's what people, I think, liked about you going forward. Like, I also, like, because I listen to, like, I feel like when Pear recommends games, I jump on those because I tend to always like what Pear recommends. So for me, it was always, when I was listening, when you were at IGN, I would listen to you, Brian Altano, and Greg and Pear. If you guys recommended games, I typically jumped on them and went right for them. It's kind of changing a little bit, and for some reason, I don't connect with Brian as much because he wasn't, at the time, he was doing all Nintendo stuff. Then when you guys left, he jumped into the PlayStation side, and I don't really listen to Beyond anymore. It just wasn't the same when you guys left. I just, it was hard. It was hard to go into there. I was just like, this is not what I want. I want these guys, and so that's the one way. But then Pear's still on NVC, and I love listening to that and pulling ideas and games off of what he's doing. So, absolutely. So, for me, like, that was the one thing of all this, I said to myself, like, I need to make sure that I say this because I feel like a lot of people feel what I feel, that you were strongly missed. And I don't think anybody realized, like, when you first went off to go do your thing, I don't think people realized how much you would be missed until they weren't hearing your voice no more, in terms of, like, where it was coming from and what you were doing. And I know that you get this bad rap sometimes as coming off like rather condescending or whatever, like because the Colin is right thing. And I got to a discussion with a friend of mine who was saying, like, well, he's kind of arrogant. Like this show called Colin is right. And I was like, you ever listen to him? He said, like, I'm wrong a lot more than I'm right. It just so happens that I'm right a couple of times, and what you nailed were big things. So that's where the whole thing came from. I said, he's not arrogant. Like, you just got to take it as a grain of salt. It's just in jest. It's not like him saying, like, I'm right, you're wrong, and it doesn't matter where it is. So, I don't know. I know we would like to see that show come back, but I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I mean, Side Quest basically is that show. So I don't technically own that IP, as it were, using gaming terms. So yeah, Colin was right. It was supposed to be a joke. I mean, it was not the show, but the name. It was supposed to be kind of, like you said, in jest. And there's a lot there because I feel like I missed doing it more than I thought I was going to miss it too, and that kind of had this sort of mission creep as the summer went on, especially. And that's what I was saying in August when I kind of had this revelation that maybe I should come back to it. And I kind of when I left Kind of Funny, and I their traffic, they got a lot of shit from people. I'm sorry to curse, but
no, that's fine.
They got a lot of crap from people, and I felt bad about that, and that kind of went away, and I didn't really want to feed into that, and like I felt like by saying anything that it would kind of just draw more attention to a situation. You kind of, in other words, sometimes you have to ignore the bully. I like punching the bully sometimes, but sometimes you ignore the bully, and but what I did notice was that like the viewership declined pretty significantly, and I thought that would come back, right? Like I thought that people would be like, we're mad now, but we still need this games coverage and stuff. What I realized was that like the numbers have like really never rebounded, and that to me said that I was missed. It made me feel kind of like validated and good that not because their traffic's down, because I want those guys to succeed. I have no problem with Kind of Funny continuing. I founded that company. I hope it lasts forever. Yeah. But I saw in that, I read between the lines and was kind of like, I feel like there are people out there that don't have someone that they can relate to anymore. And does that mean that I can carve out my own little? Someone recently put it to me like your own little pixel on the internet somewhere, and that the answer to me was yes, and I felt like people were happy for me to come back because of that different voice. I mean, I don't feel like I look at games media. YouTube's great because YouTube and Twitch have this wide variety of really interesting people and really great, smart minds and intelligent debate and some silliness and some zaniness. There's always a place for that. But when I look at media, which is what people used to kind of relate to, I'm like, these people are all the same. They all speak to each other, and not to use politics as the only barometer, but don't you think it's weird that no one at any of the gaming websites voted for Donald Trump? that no one at the gaming websites has a conservative or moderate viewpoint, that no one at the gaming websites like wants anything to do with half of the United States, how put off that an audience might be from that. This almost adversarial relationship that they have with their audience. Well, I'm not like that with my audience. And we have curt conversations with each other, but there's a lot of love and there's a lot of respect and there's a lot of good vibes between us. And so I read into all of these different things, and I'm like, there's still a place for Colin Moriarty. Yeah. It might not be Colin Moriarty, senior editor of IGN, or host of Podcast Beyond, or host of PS I Love You, or co-founder of Kind of Funny, but just our little corner where we can talk about games the way we used to talk about games. And hopefully those people that never went back to Kind of Funny find a home with CLS. And even people that still use Kind of Funny or just new people entirely also find a home there as well. Yeah. So I appreciate your kind words. It means a lot to me. And I know a lot of people have been sending me a lot of really kind words. It really fills my heart with glee, really. And that's weird because I'm usually a pretty miserable person.
Well, I think the thing is like when you go through, me and my wife were talking about this last week. It's like when you go through what you went through, when that barrage comes on, and it's a pack mentality. It's like when it comes the way it comes, and I can see where your frustration is and you leave, but I feel like you needed to know that there's people out there that loved you and was like, man, I get why he's leaving, but I don't want him to leave. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, and it's like, but what do you say? How do you handle it? And like, you had to, sadly, it was the journey you had to take in order to figure out, like, okay, this is what I need to be doing. You know, this is where I need to be.
I showed a level of stuff. I showed a lot of stubbornness. Like, I will never look back at that experience and pretend that it wasn't incredibly stubborn for me to be like, yeah, I'm just going to go. And I guess I had like the ability to do that, to change courses and find some success doing something else. But man, it harkens back to that real love and that respecting the audience and kind of being real about what you're good at and why people know you and why people care about you. And so I wanted to be true to that. And I'm glad that people were patient with me as I was out there in the wilderness. And as I know I frustrated a lot of people, and I'm sure that I lost people along the way, but I did have to take that kind of like journey. I was in a lot of pain, and I know, I know people are sick of hearing it. I'm sick of talking about it too, but it's like, there was a lot of pain and a lot of loneliness and a lot of feelings that you kind of have to work out and get through, because it was way more than me just not, talking about games anymore. My entire life collapsed. I lost a lot of people that were close to me. I don't, speak to a lot of people anymore and kind of live a different existence now. But in that solitary nature comes a lot of time to think. And from that time to think comes, new and exciting things. And I think less is more. And I think side quest once a week is fantastic. I think that's, I don't want to pretend like I can demand hours of people's time. And, it's like, it's ridiculous. Like you have other things to do. Everyone has other things to do. But if I can get 10 or 15 minutes of your week and deliver something cool to you, and I'd like to do a gaming podcast one day, but I don't know that I'll be able to have time. Something else will have to give in order for that to happen. But other than that, I think just side quests and maybe a gaming podcast one day, and that's it.
Because Sean Capri's asking, he's saying, are you basically going to take this as a lone wolf? I kind of know where I think you're going to go with this. Are you going to do like a lone wolf thing, or are you planning on bringing on some people? Like, where's the future of all this go? Like, are you just going to stay with you, or do you ever see yourself expanding all of this?
Well, so the reason that I don't know if you guys have been following this Patreon drama that's been going on with their fee structure changing, and it's kind of
we have, just so you know, Sean Capri, I got Bad Bit Games in the chat too. We're all part of. We have a Patreon called Make Us Better, and it's four of us, and it just came out this week, and I was just like, wow, like, no, this is the dumbest thing in the world. I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to give more money to the creators, but at the same time, you're taking money out of the people's mouths that are giving us money. Like, I'm honored to have a guy give me $1. You're now going to tell him like that $1 turns into $1.35 or whatever it is. Like, it's the dumbest thing in the world to me, and it's like I don't get where it's coming from. I don't understand. But go ahead.
It's okay. It's frustrating for everyone because I think that for me, like, the meteoric success of CLS meant that it was always going to fall down to a new normal, and I had no idea what the new normal was. When the first time I was on Rogan, I talked about how, I was at like 6,200 subs or something like that. I'm like, there's no way it's going to stay there, especially because I refused to make the videos that a lot of people thought I was going to make, which was like, attack the snowflakes and the cucks and all that. And I'm like, that's never the way I've spoken. I've never used the term snowflake or SJW once in my life, so I'm not going to start now. So I think that, you know, people got the wrong idea and bailed out. But around 4,500 subs, it started to plateau. And I noticed that it was not only plateauing, it was starting to grow from there a little bit. And that's when I started to think about, the reason I'm saying this is because I started to think about Colin's Last Stand in terms of growth and being like, when we hired people at Kind of Funny, it was through the lens of, can we give these people steady income and something that they can rely upon, pay them fairly for their work? I don't want to take advantage of anyone or ask people to walk away from things and then 3 months later be like, you got to go. Sorry, I'm out of money. And so things were starting to stabilize to the point where I'm like, I can actually probably hire help. And the first, I mean, I could afford to hire help now, but again, I don't want to be like, come on in and work for me and quit your job or, you know, whatever the case might be. And then, you know, I lose, you know, I'm down to $10,000 a month or whatever, which is a lot of money. But I mean, at that point, it's like, you can't really afford to pay someone, you know, an income and give them health insurance or even part-time work. So, so it was disappointing because I was starting to actually grow and starting to get some stability and some predictability. And then they did this and I've lost like 2% of my base. The ironic thing is that I've not really lost that much money, but that's not the point. I just gave away $5,000 to my audience. This is clearly not all about money. I'd rather have happy people enjoying the content. And so I kind of have to like take a wait and see approach again now. So the answer to your question is, from a production standpoint, I hope to bring someone in soon to help me because I'm losing my friggin' mind. But the other thing is that I'd love to do a podcast and be able to pay someone to, you know, that's local, that is authoritative, a few dollars to come and do a show with me. Because I don't expect anyone to do anything for free for me. And so that's in the cards. Otherwise, I don't know. I have one of the reasons that I was unhappy at Kind of Funny was I was just growing too much. I didn't that wasn't my vision. So I would expect that CLS will remain small and nimble. And I also don't think it's perpetual. I think that Colin's Last Stand is, you know, could last a few years, could last 5 years, 10 years, but I don't think it's going to be like this forever thing either. So I look at it through those particular viewpoints and try to take it day by day. But it sucks because I was really on the precipice of making a move, and then, you know, they kind of screwed us. But I did have a 40-minute conversation with the CEO, and
my thing is just, why didn't they come to us? Why didn't they say to us, like, this is what we're thinking. What do you guys think? Like, I would rather eat the money, and I'm sure you're of the same mind. Like, I would rather me pay the money than my patron. Like, that makes no sense to throw more money on them. You know, it just blows my mind. I don't. Yeah,
it sucks. I understand, you know, the viewpoint of like Netflix and Spotify. They pay Netflix and Spotify pay the credit card transaction fee, right? And they have this what's called, you know, an anniversary sort of system where if you join on the 8th, you're billed on the 8th, and that's not the way the Patreon works. And I understand that if they change half of that, if they say change that they're going to do monthly billing for everyone, then this raises fees. Like he was telling me that if they start billing people on the days that they sign up, that you could potentially lose like 30% of your money. And at that point, that becomes a problem, right? So, so they're like, so we have to change this as well, and kind of foist that on the patrons. And my whole take was like, I understand that rationale, but I think you should probably just go back to the way it was, because this is you're solving a problem no one was asking you to solve. I've been in a beta on Patreon. I've been in a bunch of betas on Patreon that like feed them data and some interesting stuff. And one of the things is that I've always been Colin's Last Stand always charged you immediately, which is not something everyone gets to do on Patreon. And not once did I ever hear anyone complain about that. Not once. So I'm like, I don't know who's complaining to you, but I've been, you know, in the top 50 Patrons in the world, and my user base is totally fine with this. And so I don't, but it did not sound to me like they were really willing to change it. But who knows what the weekend will do? I don't know.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people. I know. I saw that Greg was going to go talk to him as well because he wasn't happy about it. He actually said something at PSX. I don't know if you caught that yesterday, but he actually even made a comment about it on the stage yesterday. And it's like, I don't know. It's a little upsetting, honestly, for me, because we're not huge. I mean, we got like 40-something, you know, patrons, and you know, right around $200 a month that give us. And I'm humbled to even think that people want to give us $200 a month, and it's like, now you're gonna throw more at them, and it's like, man, I would just rather not do that at all. That just it sucks, honestly.
Well, it's just not smart because it's you know, the fact is that low end support is not valuable per se to Patreon, and maybe even not valuable to creators because one $10 sub is paying for 10 $1 subs, right? It's but that's not really the point. The point is that people not. I really try to look at it through a lens of privilege in a sense, and I hate that word typically, but I do very well for myself. You're right. $1 is not a lot of money to me. $5, $10, this is not a lot of money, right? To a normal person, that's an extraordinary amount of money. Yes. In the United States, where people half of all Americans don't have $400 to cover an emergency, where the median household income is like $35,000 a year, and that's for a family of 4. Yeah. This isn't a joke. Not everything is through this perspective of San Francisco and Silicon Valley, where I was poor in that city. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what bothers me the most. Is it's basically saying to people like, you're not valuable. And the fact of the matter is, if they really looked at their data, at least through Colin's Last Dance perspective, they'd see that a lot of people join it at $1 or $2, get comfortable with the system, increase to $5, increase it to $10. Everyone makes more money and everyone's more happy with the content. So I think they showed a great deal of disrespect to people who count their dollars, which is most people, and I know what it's like to work really hard for very little pay. I was a landscaper. I shoveled horse poop at stables. I mowed lawns and shoveled snow. I did lots of really emptied garbage cans and did janitorial stuff. When you do stuff like that and you're paid $7, $8, $9 an hour, 35 cents is not trivial. I mean, I'm not saying it's like you're going to go live on the street, but it's not a trivial amount of money. That's the way they're kind of treating it, and I am trying my hardest to advocate for people on that, because I understand. I know it's not a lot of money to me, but it's a lot of money to a lot of you, and I would rather you be a happy $1 patron than an unhappy $5 patron or a patron that doesn't exist. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So
I agree. Mr. Jules Watcham just popped into the chat and said hello to us. So he's checking us out. I love Jules.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's actually going to come on next week, I believe Friday, for Nintendo Talk Live, because his Mutant Mudds collection launches Thursday. So
awesome.
It's going to be on
Mutant Mudds is superb. I love Mutant Mudds.
It's so good, man. It's so good. It's
so fun. It's so simple.
Yeah,
but so hard to master, to get all of the collectibles and stuff. I actually, this time last year, I was home. When was it? No, it must have been actually last summer. I was playing both of them on Vita, and I was at my girlfriend's house for like a week, her parents' house, and I think I played those games for like 25 hours or something, and I just there's just something. I understand they're not for everybody. They're very repetitive and stuff, but they're so sound. Yeah. So I really like those games, and it's so funny because the one thing this really speaks to my own neurosis, but the one thing that's keeping me from playing a lot of smaller games on Switch or non-exclusives is that there's no trophy system or achievement system, and I think I'd be all over it if they just had something. And I know that they're probably going to put it in, but I need that extra hook. Otherwise, I have this thing that's been going on PS4 forever that I got to keep doing it.
I think the thing is how far. Did you roll credits on Odyssey yet or no?
No.
Okay, there's something that pops up later that I think is gonna. It's a foreshadowing for the future.
Cool.
So I think that I agree. I think at some point they're gonna bring this trophy system in. They have to. You know what I mean? Like, too many people are screaming for it, and I think it feels like I was just talking to the guy that owns a retro video game shop, Nick, and we were talking today, and he was like, it just feels like the old guard is kind of slowly leaving Nintendo, and the younger guys are just like, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and they're starting to make these changes. It feels that way anyway. So I hope that this is the one that happens.
They're always missing basic functionality. I mean, this is one of the things that Nintendo just doesn't do right. They're just it's always not quite right. Yeah. Like GameCube was a phenomenal system, for instance, right? Like I love GameCube. It's my favorite console of that generation, way better than PS2. And why not DVDs? So little things like that where I'm like, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah. And this isn't quite as extreme as that, but basic functionality, trophy and achievement systems are basic functionality. Steam has them, PlayStation has them, Xbox has them, Apple and Android have them. Yeah. So why can't you, it's just not everyone cares about it. I would say even most people don't care about it. But this is literally something that you can put in your dev cycle that is done at the very end, just like it is on PlayStation. Yeah. That people have, Jules had to do it for PlayStation Vita and PS4 and PS3. He had to do it. It's already done. Yeah. So now you just carry over that that data and manipulate it in any way to make it work on Switch. And I know it's more complicated than that, but it was one of those tone deaf things. It was like the voice chat stuff and with the headset and the app and stuff. I'm like, come on, man, this is so weird. This is so bizarre. But when you have something as good as Switch, you can't really complain. It's certainly better than I thought it was going to be. So with that that would be a nice cherry on top. And I bet you would increase my engagement. And I bet you would increase. You see, this is the thing, is that I bet you would increase engagement with people that are like me. Yeah. And there are a lot of us.
Yeah.
I
know.
So
well, maybe that's what we need to do. We need to start sending letters to Reggie and all, just saying we need Colin Moriarty to talk for Nintendo and be in this world. So we need you to start putting trophies in the games.
The coolest thing about it is that they can be the first of all of these groups too to do something really special with it, to make it meaningful. I think coins, or whatever the case might be, some sort of Mario imagery where you're maybe a bronze is a coin, maybe a silver is a mushroom or something. But and I know Sony started to do this where their platinums are some sort of currency now and stuff, but they can do something really special where they can really chip prices down for you and do cool stuff and make you want to earn them, not just for vanity, but because maybe it makes a game cheaper, it gives you a discount or access to special DLC or something. I think that would be really a dynamic and fun idea, and I know that it's complicated, and I know that the reason that they don't do it is because the same reason Sony didn't do it. That's the same reason Sony pulled back on doing trophies on PSP, which a lot of people don't know, is trophies on PSP were running and they were doing it. And it's so easy to hack that you could just manipulate the system. And I know that that's a major concern of monetizing these rewards. Yeah. But Nintendo seems to be the most technically sound company from some perspective. Yeah. And so I wonder if they would be able to be the first ones to really do something cool, Yeah.
I have a podcast that I do. It's called If We Ran Nintendo, and and it's just basically it's not in a mean way or anything. We take a legitimate thing, a legitimate topic, and put a spin. What would we do if we had it? So Sean Capri used to be my host on it, and he just said, if Colin ran Nintendo, what would he call the trophy system on the Switch?
I think I would use coins. I just think that and I know that that's kind of like a currency that's already used or was used. And is that, what is that old system that they just shut down? My Nintendo, or what was that thing called? My Nintendo. So I know that there might be some confusion with the vernacular.
Are you talking about Club Nintendo
or Nintendo Club Nintendo? That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I know that they don't.
My Nintendo's the new one.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So I think you can. Like I said, it would be cool to have some sort of. I don't know if Microsoft had trademarked the word achievement, because in terms of being used in this way, because I think Steam also calls theirs achievements. Yeah. So you could probably get away with using some sort of name like that, but I don't even know. I think medals. It could be. There's a million different words you can use for it, but I think that would be a really exciting thing. I'm telling you, man, if they had that out the gate too on Switch, it would have probably been a very different story for me. Yeah. With that, I know that it's a neurotic way of playing games, but it's
very neurotic. I sat here, so I said earlier my wife's favorite game is Fallout 4, and I was playing Zelda while she was playing Fallout 4, and she was going for the platinum, and she did platinum it, but watching her go after this thing, I was like, I can't play like this. I can't, this is it's a different strategy. You're playing the game a totally different way, and she had it set up where she had a save file right at a certain point, so she didn't have to play the game over 3 different ways. It was just when you pick your final regime at the end. So she puts the save file just before, and I'm like, I wouldn't think of that. I would just bowl through, and I go, oh, I got to play this game all over again. And
right.
And it's just these little things you do in order to make it happen. It's kind of funny.
You should look at Heavy Rain's trophy guide one day. Yeah. That one's the most ridiculous one if you want to see completely heinous. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
I could deal with it. Roger's base, he's here down. He said stars. He likes the name stars over coins.
Stars would work.
Stars would work. So we're getting ready to wrap up. We're coming up on an hour. My question, one last question for you, and it doesn't have to be strictly Nintendo. Well, two questions. One, what game are you looking forward to in the next year or so, hitting either Switch or PlayStation that you're excited for?
I mean, I think the most imminent game that I'm really excited for is Far Cry 5. Okay. I'm a huge Far Cry fan, so that game soon, and I think that one is that and Red Dead I think are probably the most imminent ones that are not Switch games, but that are coming to consoles and PC that I think are the most promising right off the bat. The thing with Nintendo, and the thing that I think is like when I saw the sales numbers and saw that PS4 actually outsold Switch in November, that surprised me. It indicated to me, and actually Switch came in last, and that indicated it to me that I think that this momentum might be hard to carry going forward for them, because I know that Metroid's announced, I know that there's like other, but I'm super curious to see how Nintendo keeps me engaged beyond this year in a heavy way, because I feel like coming out with Zelda and Mario in the first year is huge. Yeah. But those are two big heavy hitters, and I only say that because when I think about what's coming out on Switch that I'm excited about, I'm not excited about anything that I can't play somewhere else. Yeah. Like I would say Megaman 11. Remember, Megaman 9 was a WiiWare game, right? And was ported later. So I say that like when I think of Megaman 11, or it's like I'm going to play that on PS4. So so I'm a little concerned about that. So much to the chagrin of your audience, it's probably I'm super excited about Far Cry.
But let's be honest here. If Mega Man 11, if the reason you're going to play it on the PS4 is for trophies.
Yeah. Also, probably because I'll probably get an early copy on PS4. So that's where but that's true to an extent. But actually, a good answer would probably also be Dragon Quest 11. Which I'm super, super excited about, and might be a game that that game is going to be so long, considering how long Dragon Quest games are, that Switch might just be a more comfortable place to play it. So that's kind of a coin flip for me.
That's where a lot of me has been. Like, if it's a long game and it's a massive game, I've been enthralled with the Switch. Like, I bought Doom on the Switch. I bought Skyrim. I plan on getting Wolfenstein. To see what Bethesda's doing, that really impresses me. Like, I see what they're doing, and I'm just like, damn, these guys are taking games that are like on the PS4, on the Xbox One, and they're bringing them right to the Switch right away, and that's like powerful to me. I look at it and go like, that's something that nobody's doing except for them. So I'm excited for that. Real quick before we wrap up, this is the last thing I'll ask you.
Sure.
What? How excited are you for Last of Us 2?
I'm super excited. When people were complaining about how it was, again, the predictable outlets were complaining about how The Last of Us 2 was so violent and misogynistic or whatever they were saying. I was like, did you ever play The Last of Us? Like, this isn't a happy place. Yeah. This isn't a civil place. There's no order in this world, and I think that going darker is exactly what it needs to do to even be darker and more horrifying. So you won't play it till 2019. A lot of people are like, it'll come out in 2018. I'm like, no, I know for a fact it's not going to come out in 2018. Yeah. So we have a ways to go, but I'm super excited about it. I mean, do you expect anything less than a masterpiece? I certainly don't. I don't.
I think these guys kill it, man. They really do. And
I've said before. I'm sorry to interrupt. I've said before. That Naughty Dog is so much better at this than everyone else, and it's true. Like, it doesn't mean that I don't have other favorite developers. I have lots of developers I have a lot of love for, but no one is even anywhere near what they're capable of doing, and in a really short amount of time too. And that comes from when you make something really great, and I think that started with Uncharted 2. Then you have to beat it over and over and over and over and over again, and it creates a climate of excellence as long as you are able to maintain it, and they're able to maintain it. And so I give I'm friends with a lot of those guys, so I know that I have some bias there. But they're just very special and very good at what they do. So very excited about it. But PS4 exclusives coming up this year are going to be great. God of War looks awesome. Days Gone looks awesome. Detroit looks awesome. The only game that I have deep reservations about is Dreams. But other than that, it's because I think Dreams is a game that's going to like to sniff its own farts. I had a real serious feeling about that game. And other than that, though, I'm excited about their lineup. So
Media Molecule is amazing, but they're just so out there. Like, they're thinking on a level that's beyond where we are. You know what I mean? Like, we want to play this game, and it's like, hey, we're going to take Mario Maker, in theory, and just blow it out the water. We're going to make this, you can make your own game. Like, they were saying you could do all this crazy stuff. It was like, who wants
to do that?
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's my major thing, and it makes me sad because I know Siobhan and a lot. I've had very candid and interesting conversations with her. She's the head of the studio. I went to this Italian restaurant with her in Germany once, and we had this really fascinating conversation about game design. She's so smart and they're so ambitious, but I really do question why. Like, I want to see what Media Molecule can make.
Yeah.
I don't want to see what Media Molecule makes that then I make. Yeah. You know what I mean? It doesn't, like, that's not how it. Now, we're saying this, though, in the world of Minecraft. We're saying this on the heels of Mario Maker's success. True, we're saying this. So who, Terraria and all these other games that are all about that. So who the hell am I, to say to speak for other people? But I just have that inkling, especially because Little Big Planet 3, which was not a Media Molecule game, but that was made by Sumo Digital. Yeah. But Little Big Planet 3 was really soft. Yeah. No one cared. Yeah. And I fear that Dreams being in development, I'm looking at my calendar now, has been in development since 2012. And it's going to come out in 2018, 6 years. We'll see if it justifies it or not. But I am skeptical. And I think, sadly, that's going to be their last game. So, yeah.
Colin, man, thank you so much for doing this. This is an absolute honor.
You're very welcome
to have you on. So I am so humbled that you agreed to do this. So thank you very much.
Thank you for asking me. And you said earlier, by the way, that you're surprised that you get me. I say no to almost everything. And once in a while, it's a roulette wheel. Yeah, once in a while, I'm like, I gotta say yes. I say yes every once in a while, and like you said, you hit me at the right time. So it's very nice to meet you. I'm more than happy to have done this with you, and thank you for asking me, and thank you to your audience for their kindness.
Anything you want to plug or anything like that? Now's your chance.
You can just find me on Twitter. I like everything is I'm not this is why I didn't do any media tours. Were kind of funny because I'm just like
you're like whatever. I don't care.
I care, but it's just I feel like it's like. I'm here to talk about games. You can find me if you want to find me. I don't want to shove things down people's throats.
Just Google me. I guess you'll find me somewhere in there.
Don't Google me. It tells you I'm sexist. Don't Google me.
Just find me. It says you're a lot of things, Colin.
Yeah, it says I'm pretty terrible. Do me a favor and don't Google me, but go ahead and find me on Twitter and YouTube.
So thank you guys, everybody that came tonight and watched in the chat. I appreciate it. Love you guys all. That is all. Peace out, Preston.